All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's City of Albany Industrial Development Finance Committee meeting. I am Darius Schonfart, Chair of the Finance Committee. We have all members of the IDA here today, with the exception of Tony Gaddy and who else are we missing?
Joe Better.
Joe Better. So we do have a quorum for today. So our first order of business, as usual, is to take a motion for the waiving of the reading of the minutes as they have been previously presented to everyone, and to accept them as presented. The motion.
I'll motion.
All right, second. Second, Chris. All right. Any discussion, corrections, additions, deletions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Terrific. On to report of the Chief Financial Officer for the quarterly budget report.
Within your packet is the quarterly report for the year ending 12/31/2023. We did report on this last quarter or last month also. This is just an update. We'll no material changes between the last presentation and this one. Just neatening up and tying out some numbers for the audit, which is currently ongoing, and do not anticipate any issues with the audit. So really, there were no significant changes to what was presented last month.
We're about $100,000 surplus over the year.
No, that's what the budget was.
Mhm.
Our actual was 462.
Under,
Not
sorry.
so good.
Yeah, sorry.
Which was expected.
Yep.
Due to lack of projects.
Yep.
And Darius too, we did have a couple of projects that we had originally accounted for closing in 2023 that for various reasons got pushed into this year. So some of that was made up for in this calendar year.
Yep. All right. All right. Any questions? Any other thoughts? All right. On to the next order of business, which is new business, 48CC. The Corporate Circle. This is a warehouse project that's being introduced to us today.
Good idea.
Thank you. The chair said this is the construction of an approximate 93,000 square foot warehouse distribution facility that is going to be placed, you can see up there to orientate yourself, is going to be placed on what is currently vacant land off of New Carner Road in the city on Corporate Circle. And we have representatives of the applicant team here with us today, Jonathan and Paul, that can speak a little bit better to what their plans are and answer any initial questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Yeah.
Please.
This is a rendering. This is Jonathan Kaufman, Paul Nebraska. So we have a handful of buildings in Corporate Circle now. This is the last parcel developed in Corporate Circle Industrial Park. And we are proposing putting up a 93,000 square foot warehouse, flexible distribution model style building that can accommodate anything from traditional distribution and warehousing to light manufacturing, technology companies as well. Based on the other tenants that are in the park at the moment, there are opportunities for all of those potentially. So we're hoping to put lifestyle businesses in this building. We don't have a current tenant. This would be a spec project. So we would entertain anything from a single tenant going in the building to as many as 8 tenants who'd be able to occupy it, looking for larger and established businesses, but it would be flexible enough to accommodate anything from 1 to 10. For your help to accomplish this.
Great.
Just one last note for the committee, we do expect to go out for additional third-party consulting review as part of the requested assistance package. It is, as we've done in the past, we are undergoing a refresh of our framework, and this request is it does deviate from what the previous framework had allocated for commercial projects. So we'll be getting quotes and getting that process started hopefully in the next few days.
I'll say this is one of the few, we are the industrial development agency, but most of our work here the last few years has been an apartment building. So this is an actual industrial use here. So we're asking for, are we talking about the financial package at this point, or just let us know?
We're gonna continue to work with the applicants, refine numbers and, work with the third party, and we will come back. We expect to come back next month with the full package, including the stat title analysis, the pro forma, and potentially, depending on how nimble we can be, an executive summary from the third party.
So the figures that are in the packet for today are just, for the pilot figures and.
Correct, that is just the applicant's request at this point. And if I may elaborate on that, what they are looking for is a fixed pilot that, so we can kind of compare apples to apples. I'll put it in two different ways. It's the request is for a pilot payment over the course of 20 years of approximately $1 per square foot of space. That it would equate to approximately, based on the improved assessed value that Trey provided via his letter, about anywhere between a 58 and a 60% abatement through the course of the requested system. So we're going to continue to look closely at that and come back with more details.
So the net benefit would be increased revenue to the taxing jurisdictions along with actual increased employment through the.
That is correct. This is vacant land, and we will have our typical project summary where on the first page, we put that into numerical equations. So we can fill out the.
Great. All right, any questions from anybody? For the discussion? Gentlemen, thank you for coming in. Next order of business is Holland Ave Oz or OZ. I like Oz better. Request for a public hearing resolution based on some change in the circumstances of the project.
So just as by way of overview, I think generally, we have two projects on the agenda, related to their approved sales tax exemptions. As you all know, in the current climate, with rising costs, it's always tough to project, these expenses for projects. And especially, difficult in times when there's costs that are higher than, what is typical on these types of projects. So we have the project representatives here, to talk about their projects, and Andy, if you have anything to elaborate on.
Yeah, and just stepping back, because we haven't seen this, we have seen this in the past, we haven't seen this recently. There are two requests in front of us today here, as Ashley just mentioned. The first of which, in working with the applicant, we did identify that an overage had occurred, and therefore a sales tax recapture will be processed and underway. So once taking that money out of the equation, so to speak, the in fact additional assistance being requested is for about $70,000 in additional sales tax exemptions, which is below the $100,000 threshold that this board would typically want to hold a public hearing for and garner additional public input. So apologies on the agenda. Those numbers are being formulated as this materials packet was being put together last week. So at least as far as it goes in terms of a public hearing, we do not need to have one of those. And Joe, I don't know in case I misspoke there.
No problem. Andy is absolutely correct on that. When we analyze a post-closing request for additional assistance, we look at the amount of the assistance being requested and whether it goes over the $100,000 threshold for requiring a new public hearing or an additional public hearing. We're below that. We are following the rules strictly with respect to the overage that took place and the recapture there. And candidly, we've seen this with a lot of our other IDA clients. You can certainly understand, given the current market climate, there's delays in construction, there's cost increases, and accordingly, the estimates that were presented at the time of the original application may have been underestimated, and accordingly, they need to come back to us. And that's part of the strength and frankly, the accountability that we have in our documents. We outline how much the benefits are going to be and the timeline, so that they are outside that, they need to come back to the IDA. So in the grand scheme, a typical request, again, we haven't seen, one relatively recently, but it all is part of our controls with respect to the projects.
Great.
as far as it relates to, the Holland Ave project, which is the one up for discussion now, we do have representatives of the applicant team, that could probably explain more eloquently than I the need, for the request at hand and answer any specific questions the committee may have.
Don't sell your eloquence short. Do you have anything to add? Do you wanna?
And Hannah on behalf of CDP Holland, thank you first for entertaining our request. We do understand your procedures and our full intent is to provide a recapture amount. We have provided in writing to Andy that we will do so, and we are making this request for the additional 70,000, so it's not to incur that in addition to the recapture amount. But certainly if you have other questions, we're more than happy to entertain.
I do not. Is anybody else? Yeah.
The recapture process, so we're going through that too, that the money comes back to us and then we have to pay the state.
Correct. So to pull those recaptured funds in and then remit them to the state, and there's also certain forms that we will have to fill out, and send in with that payment and also post on our website as part of our annual, compliance exercises, which we will do.
And that reflects a relatively recent change in state law that basically made us a policeman in connection with with this process. So there is a form which outlines the amount of the recapture comes to us, and then we forward it on to the appropriate state entity.
All right, anybody else?
So is there a preferred mechanism for this specific project where now we do not have a resolution?
Well, we'll have a resolution for the meeting next week. It's just that it won't include a public hearing authorization. So
So we need a motion now to approve the,
I think the actual process is that we recommend moving forward and that the agency consider the resolution at the Thursday meeting.
that sounds like a really good motion.
I'll make it.
For articulateness.
I can second that.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all's in favor? Aye, all right. All right, thank you for coming in, and the building's looking pretty good. All right,
I think it would be for the approval of the additional census one.
Additional.
all right, all set,
Language.
Okay. Awesome.
terrific. So our next order of business is 745 Broadway Apartments. We have a similar issue here.
Yes,
Yeah.
a similar issue. We also have a request letter detailing the numbers involved here. Speaking with the project applicant who is here with us today, Jeff Morrell. We also believe that there is an overage that occurred here, and the applicant's working to kind of pin down the exact dollar amount, which will then be subject to recapture, as we just discussed with the previous project. So we expect to have exact numbers on that in the coming days here. We can report back once that is known. And with that, turn it over to the applicant to provide any updates or answer any questions.
Well, I want to take ditto, but Village Pilot and Village Slidell, we're in the same position, also overruns. So our request is above $100,000. So this is sort of the process where we're going to ask you to recommend to the board to hold a public hearing. Because we're asking for additional mortgage reporting tax of that $40,000 and additional sales tax of about $100,000, and an extension of the time period. The extension of the time period is due primarily for the retail space, which has not been let out yet. So we're not quite sure how long it's going to take to find a tenant, and then to negotiate the lease and then to do that build out. So that sort of is a long tail trailing all this. We too are in the same position where, for whatever reason, we think that we may have exceeded the amount of originally granted sales tax exemption. And obviously that's on us, and whatever amount that is turns out to be, the law provides that we have to pay it back.
All right,
And just operationally, in our resolution, we approve this, we'll have a number of conditions. And one of the conditions will be set, information satisfactory to us, that the number's been properly calculated and that they've made arrangements for the recapture. There'll be multiple conditions in the resolution. We'll walk you through that, next Thursday.
In both cases.
In both cases,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? How close is the building to being finished?
Substantial completion, but there'll be spring work due to delays and enough, so enough to hopefully get our temporary CO and have folks start moving in.
In the spring?
No, hopefully this month.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. How's the response been for, people wanting to rent?
You know, given, we intended to deliver the building many months ago, due to supply chain issues, but not. I would say in delivering at the most probably suboptimal time. In the leasing calendar, being, you know, winter in Albany.
Yeah.
The initial response has actually been very good. We're pleased with, even though the building's been in a construction state, we've been really pleased with, folks who are touring and their response and the number of leases that are starting.
Great. All right. So similarly, do we need a motion to recommend this to the board, to the full board? Okay. So any other discussion? And do I have a motion to move this request to the full board for discussion for next week?
I'll make a motion.
All right. Second, Chris, all's in favor? Aye. We will see you next week. All right. All right. Now the meat and potatoes is done. On to agency business, agency update, I should say, other business.
The only real update I have there, is that Cowboys Albany staff did attend, the New York State EDC conference the past day and a half. So a really productive, learning experience and opportunity to, you know, meet with our cohort across the state.
But did
So
you get hot sauce there
we
too?
did get hot
Okay.
sauce and lots of swag that were.
Yeah, anything else to report out of that? Anything interesting or new or?
I don't know if there's anything,
Yeah.
It was, directly prior to this meeting, I was at a breakout session discussing, the prevailing wage, or actually, the attorney who was just here, Millen, was leading that discussion, so, I'm sitting next to Joe's partner, Chris, and I think the general theme was it still is, less clear than people, would hope it to be. They did, however, appoint, members to the board that will be reviewing projects. So that was
That's a step forward, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think as an agency, a takeaway would be to continue to closely look at the numbers, and that 30% threshold, and continue to make applicants aware if they're at 1 year or over that threshold, that, you know, there may be additional, reporting involved there. So, something to keep our eye on.
Do you know if market conditions right now are essentially making the discussion moot and that wages are actually getting up to prevailing wage without?
It's an interesting point. They did not bring that up.
Well, I think what you see in the capital district is very close to prevailing wage.
Mhm.
And you know, you might be able to speak to that better than me, but in my discussions with the developers in the capital district is that they're very close already.
Mm.
And I was, you know, Shannon and Chris were at the conference. I was back in the office slogging away, but,
On behalf of a grateful board, I thank you, Charlie.
So dramatic.
Martyr.
But what we've all been looking for is some level of certainty with this legislation. And what I find ironic about the legislation is that it was a major achievement on the part of labor and frankly, business working together. But the piece of legislation itself wasn't, in our view, very well crafted. And so what the struggle has been is, what does it mean? How do you implement it? How do you administer it? It took a long time just for the committee to be appointed, which, you know, says something. And so I think what we're all searching for is what's the middle point, so that we're all in the herd, because we don't want to be on the outskirts, you know. of the herd, if you will. And I think what developed today was perhaps maybe some more certainty, and, you know, we're gonna do more review on that, and we'll be circling with the staff to make sure that we're in the herd and not anywhere outside the herd as we move forward.
So labor and business got together and the politicians screwed it up.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I think
Okay.
it's, you know, I don't know who drafted it, whether it was labor, or whether it was business, or whether it was the politicians, but, you know, I think there's, you know, there's a reasonable basis for what took place, but it's just, you know, tell us what to do.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
We're moving forward.
Great.
One of those sessions I found particularly interesting was talking about AI and technology and bringing that into the economic development field. And so part of what they talked about, was a company that does job training through VR. And really one of the things that they use as an example was like, you know, like linemen and things in the, you know, utilities industry. You don't know until you get people, you know, hundreds of feet up on a pole necessarily, that maybe that's not the profession for them. I mean, so they were able, you know, through the VR and through some of those technologies, they can give people the feel for some of those careers that maybe it's not safe to get them, you know, up in the air, right away, but you can give them the feel for it. So maybe they realize, yeah, that's not for me. So that was one thing that was interesting. And also in that session, was another speaker, that was, really pivotal in the IADC, like starting up of IADC. He went through a number of statistics related to small business and small business growth, and how, you know, minorities and women-owned minority businesses are really, pivotal growth, industry, you know, parts of the industry. And that really hits home for a lot of the efforts that, you know, Capitalize Albany is initiating on behalf of the group with CRC funding. So really kind of doing those things that we should be doing in that field and hitting that mark.
All right. All right.
Sorry,
Yeah.
In connection with the agency update, there were some developments with Liberty Park late last week. We'll make sure that Chuck is available next week.
Okay.
All positive. I think the strategy, you know, that we've employed has borne some fruit. And I don't want to steal any thunder from Chuck, but he'll be on the phone with us next week.
Right.
We're all gonna wait with bated breath.
Anything else on agency update?
Scenes from the next episode.
No teaser at the end of this meeting?
Next week, huh?
The idea.
As the IDA turns. Compliance update. We're moving forward with being compliant.
Yes, and
Okay.
Cassidy and Emma have been very quiet this meeting. That will not be the case next week.
Okay.
They will be taking the board through the first real deep dive into our compliance figures, which are in terms of percentage reporting. We're in really good shape, still work to do. And they will be running through that in detail. So it may be a little bit of a longer meeting next week. And we will also have a CRC meeting in order to do that at the CRC level as well.
All right. Anything else? Speak now, forever hold your peace. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
All right. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Would you like to song something?